Me in studio, State Senator Steve McClure here with us to get the latest on what could possibly happen with fall veto session. Senator, thanks for taking time, and good morning.
Good morning, Greg.
So fall veto session's in 2 weeks, a whole host of things to deal with, from energy policy to even possibly some supplemental appropriation being discussed as what could possibly come up. What do you and the Republican minority see happening with fall veto session?
Well, the first big veto bill that we're going to take up as Senate Republicans is Sue Resin's nuclear bill. It had a bipartisan supermajority in both houses, and the governor decided that his presidential ambitions were more important than signing into law a policy that will help our state, not just with cheaper energy prices, but clean energy. And so that's going to be the first thing that, as Senate Republicans, we're going to be supporting, is an override of the governor's veto of that bill.
Obviously, that's just one measure that could come up. You've got the Ameren bill as well that would allow for Ameren to have right of first refusal. What do you anticipate happening with that particular? Because that was bipartisan as well, was it not?
It was bipartisan. I would anticipate discussions among the House leadership with the rank and file members and the Senate leadership with rank and file members. On the nuclear bill, for example, I know that there are rumblings that the Speaker of the House has said there has to be a certain number of Democrats that agree to vote for the bill before it will be called to the floor. In my opinion, that overrides the will of the voters and the people of this state. You shouldn't have these tests. Well, only if 70 Democrats vote for it or something like that. Put it on the floor and let the people that have been voted in to represent their constituents vote. I think that's silly to do these tallies before votes are held. So it's going to be up to leadership whether these bills are called or not. A lot of people don't realize that you have to actually get your bill called. It's not just having a bill. It's not just having the votes. The Speaker of the House is a very powerful person. He's got to call that bill for a vote. So we'll see on both of those pieces of legislation if they call them in the House. And that's really what is going to make or break those bills.
We're talking with Illinois State Senator Steve McClure, Republican from Springfield, about veto session, which is in 2 weeks starting today. And obviously energy is going to be one of those big policies. But you're advocating to go ahead and take those bills that the governor vetoed and attempt to override those. Do you anticipate that they're going to just rewrite stuff and bring new legislation out to address what the governor has brought up in some of his concerns?
It's certainly possible, but the governor's been very hands-off as far as legislation is concerned. If you watch him in press conferences or in discussions, it's always sort of like, well, the legislature's going to do what they're going to do. I just either sign or veto it. That's kind of unacceptable, especially when his money's basically funded the entire legislative body for the last several years. So he wants to fund all these races, get these people elected, and then he claims that it's all up to them. Give me a break. I mean, we all know that the governor has a tremendous amount of power, and if he wants these bills to pass or to be corrected a little bit, guess what? They will be corrected a little bit and they'll pass. But he's filled with excuses and all kinds of things. It's time for him to maybe start trying to be a leader of our state and stop trying to maybe run for president. And so it's very frustrating for all of us because he acts like he's hands-off when he's really not.
Some of the other issues that we've heard could come up includes how to deal with the ongoing situation of non-citizens being sent to Chicago. You got the governor who is out giving $40+ million to 6 Chicago area municipalities and jurisdictions to handle migrants outside of Chicago. You even have the idea that there could be a supplemental appropriation raised during fall veto session. The governor says they're actually kind of shifting some money away from a residential housing assistance program to help house these migrants. What do you see happening with a possible supplemental appropriation, and do we have the funds to be able to do something like that?
We don't have the funds, and we typically don't have the funds for much of anything that we ever do in this state. But I'll say this, the governor wants to blame Joe Biden on the immigrant crisis right now and blame the governor of Texas and everything else. The governor has been, for the entire time he's been in office, begging people to come here, incentivizing them to come here, gives them free health care where people don't even have to pay copays. You know, I've got health insurance, I've got to pay copays, and yet I'm paying through my tax dollars for people that are citizens of other countries in this state to get free health insurance where they don't have to pay any copays. So why are you going to make all these incentives for people to come here and stay here and then blame everybody else for why they're coming here and staying here? And so I think the excuses from the governor, it's time to create new policies that protect the people of our state and our country, the governor's not been willing to do that. Instead, he wants to blame everybody else for policies that he has created that are encouraging people to come and stay in this state.
Bottom line, though, we've got them here, 15,000 plus. The humanitarian situation, they're going to have a base camp tent up in Chicago. Apparently already $30 million of state tax dollars going to Chicago. That seems to be the same amount that they agreed for this base camp tent. They're here now. How do we deal with this? Do we reverse the policies, like you said, and actually assist the federal government in enforcing immigration law, which is not the law of the land right now in Illinois? Is that the approach, or do we get some short-term funding set up to address the humanitarian crisis?
Well, we have to reverse our policies in the state, period, because it's not safe for the people that are here. Those people coming and living in tent cities in Chicago has a severe crime problem right now. And everybody knows that and accepts that. Chicago is a wonderful city, a beautiful city, but its citizens are being ravaged by crime that is unacceptable. And so all these folks coming in, and they've got no place to stay. They're sleeping in the airport. They're sleeping in police stations. They're sleeping in tents. On top of that, we've got people running wild in Chicago that are doing horrible things to each other. That's a recipe for disaster. So we don't really have a choice here. We've got to cooperate with the federal government for the safety of the people that are here from other countries and for the safety of the citizens of Chicago. And it's not stopping anytime soon. It's continuous. And even if the governor were to have some sort of short-term spending package to help assist Chicago, this is a never-ending problem. These busloads keep coming and coming and coming and coming. And the governor had no problem with these busloads coming as long as they were in other states. Now, all of a sudden, they're in our state. He admits, oh, well, maybe I was wrong about these things. Maybe they are unsustainable. But here we are, and we've got to change policies, or we're going to be in even worse shape as the days and months and weeks go on.
State Senator Steve McClure with us here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Going to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about the Department of Children and Family Services shakeup, the status of the pipeline for CO2, and maybe we also talk about the Safety Act as well. Stay tuned. Plenty coming up here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News. Back talking with State Senator Steve McClure here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Senator, one thing that we didn't touch on, of course, energy and possible supplemental appropriation. But the Invest in Kids Act, there's only 6 days left for you guys to re-up that program. How important is this?
It's very important, and our caucus supports the program. During the budget negotiations, we to the very last moment, before the budget was voted on, we were negotiating with the Senate Democrats, trying to reach an agreement there to extend the program because so many kids are counting on the program for their education. And it's such a great program. It makes people feel good. It makes it gives better education opportunities for kids in this state that deserve, quite frankly, to get better opportunities there. So we're fighting for it, and we'll see what happens. And we're not going to give up.
I mean, you've got tax credits for Goshen, $500+ million, but tax credits for private investment in school choice. I mean, is that a apples and oranges, or is a tax credit?
Well, I think the message needs to be sent to the governor that you should be investing more in the kids in this state than you are in communist China.
State Senator Steve McClure with us. Speaking of children, DCFS has been the focus of recent audits that highlights the problems within the agency. Everything from not reporting alleged abuse to the proper authorities in a timely fashion, to even not just following regulations properly and possibly leading to the harm of children. What should DCFS do here? What should the governor do, especially now that Mark Smith is on his way out by the end of the year?
The governor needs to look at DCFS from the bottom up. And so, one thing that I've been involved in locally is with the Springfield office, with the offices in my district. I've been going and touring them and dealing with issues that have been local as far as ensuring that we've got enough employees that work there. I think DCFS is very understaffed. And if you don't have enough staff members to do the basic things that a DCFS case needs to have done to them, then you're not going to catch things that are going to potentially save the lives of kids and to keep the schools updated as to what's happening, to keep law enforcement updated. So I think it starts with, at the baseline, you've got to have enough people working in each of these offices. Now, that's something that the governor needs to focus on from the bottom up. And that's been, quite frankly, a problem with most of the governor's state agencies that he overseas, is the staffing issue. And that's been true whether it was IDES during the pandemic, to DHS, where we've got a lot of people that are still being housed in county jails that have mental health issues because DHS does not have enough staff to keep them at DHS or DCFS. So it's really a staffing issue. And based on the fact that it seems to be occurring in every single state agency, I think the governor needs to just sit down with his folks and start to get this organized, get a plan together to hire people and to go through each of these agencies and to see where the needs are most and start filling those vacancies first. But until the governor starts to take some responsibility here and start at the ground level, we are never going to see changes to DCFS because they have had historic funding levels at DCFS.
Continues to grow.
The child deaths and the problems within DCFS are getting worse. And so it's not money and it's not the top of the food chain here. It's from the bottom up, needs to be changed. And certainly I think Mark Smith should feel like there is some justified criticism of what he did, but this is all in the governor's hands, in my opinion, and it's got to change or more kids are going to die.
State Senator Steve McClure with us. One other thing, and this may be it, but we may touch on something else just before the break at the top of the hour, the pipeline, CO2 pipeline. Every time I drive south in South Sangamon County, I see a big billboard that says no CO2 pipeline for private profit. Where are we at on your measure to put a moratorium on this until the feds deal with such things?
Well, I'm still pushing for it. It's still alive. We've got no indication that they're going to call it in veto session yet, but we're pushing for it. It's something that my constituents overwhelmingly support, and certainly there
the moratorium, not the CO2 pipeline.
That's right. My constituents support my legislation, which is a moratorium for up to 2 years, or until the feds have better, stronger rules in place to protect people that are in the path of the pipeline. So my constituents overwhelmingly support that, and we've got a lot of support from Republicans and Democrats across the state. If you look at the legislation, we've got a Democrat co-sponsor who is supportive of the bill, despite the fact that politically she and I are probably very far apart on almost every other issue. The fact that we're coming together for this bill should indicate, I hope, to the leadership in the Democratic caucus that this is a real issue and we need to do something about it in veto session because my constituents care about it and it needs to be addressed.
Finally here, we got a minute and a half. It's been, 3 weeks now since the Safety Act, Pretrial Fairness Act has been in place. How do you feel that this is playing out? Any problems that you've seen pop up?
Oh, yeah. The first problem I saw pop up was in Effingham County. 20 minutes after the Safety Act was first implemented in a local county jail, the first person that was released was rearrested 20 minutes later for assault. So you've got people committing new crimes and feeling that there is nothing that's going to stop them from committing these crimes. And that's a dangerous thing for our state. And so I would love to be able to make some changes to the Safety Act to make it less bad. And certainly we have many proposals, and you're going to hear about those proposals, Greg, probably in the spring. But we've got to make some significant changes here because the people of the state deserve better than this, and crime is a major problem that is only getting worse.
State Senator Steve McClure, greatly appreciate your time as always, and we'll definitely be talking again soon, all right?
Sounds good, Greg. Thank you.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield.